lighthouse started with the founding of the city of Alexandria by the Macedonian conqueror Alexander the Great in 332 BC. Alexander started at least 17 cities named Alexandria at different locations in his vast domain. Most of them disappeared, but Alexandria in Egypt thrived for many centuries and is prosperous even today. Alexander the Great chose the location of his new city carefully. Instead of building it on the Nile Delta, he selected a site some 20 miles to the west so that the silt and mud carried by the river would not block the city harbor. South of the city was the marshy Lake Mareotis. After a canal was constructed between the lake and the Nile, the city had two harbors, one for the Nile River traffic and the other for the Mediterranean Sea trade. Both harbors would remain deep and clear, and the activity they allowed made the city very wealthy. Alexander died in 323 BC, and the city was completed by Ptolemy Soter, the new ruler of Egypt. Under Ptolemy, the city became rich and prosperous. However, it needed both a symbol and a mechanism to guide the many trade ships into its busy harbor. Ptolemy authorized the building of the Pharos in 290 BC, and when it was completed some 20 years later, it was the first lighthouse in the world and the tallest building in existence, with the exception of the Great Pyramid. The construction cost was said to have been 800 talents, an amount equal today to about $3 million. Construction of the lighthouse. The lighthouse's designer is believed to be Sostratus of Knidos or Knidos, though some sources argue he only provided the financing for the project. Proud of his work, Sostratus desired to have his name carved into the foundation. Ptolemy II, the son who ruled Egypt after his father, refused this request, wanting only his own name to be on the building. A clever man, Sostratus supposedly had the inscription, Sostratus, son of Dexaphanes of Knidos, on behalf of all mariners, to the Savior gods, chiseled into the foundation, then covered it with plaster. Into the plaster was carved Ptolemy's name. As the years went by, and after both the death of Sostratus and Ptolemy, the plaster aged and chipped away, revealing Sostratus's dedication. The lighthouse was built on the island of Pharos, and soon the building itself acquired that name. The connection of the name with the function became so strong that the word Pharos became the root of the word lighthouse in French, Italian, Spanish, and Romanian languages. There are two detailed descriptions made of the lighthouse in the 10th century AD by Moorish travelers Idrisi and Yusuf ibn al-Shaykh. According to their accounts, the building was 300 cubits high. Because the cubit measurement varied from place to place, however, this could mean that the Pharos stood anywhere from 450, 140 meters to 600, 183 meters feet in height, although the lower figure is much more likely. The design was unlike the slim single column of most modern lighthouses, but more like the structure of an early 20th century skyscraper. There were 3 stages, each built one on top of the other. The building material was stone faced with white marble blocks cemented together with lead mortar. The lowest level of the building, which sat on a 20-foot, 6-meter high stone platform, was probably about 200 feet, 73 meters in height, and 100 feet, 30 meters square at the base, shaped like a massive box. The door to this section of the building wasn't at the bottom of the structure, but part way up and reached by a 600-foot portion of the structure was a large spiral ramp that allowed materials to be pulled to the top in animal-drawn carts. On top of that first section was an 8-sided tower, which was probably about 115 feet, 35 meters in height. On top of the tower was a cylinder that extended up another 60 feet, 18 meters, to an open cupola where the fire that provided the light burned. On the roof of the cupola was a large statue, probably of the god of the sea, Poseidon. The mirror. The interior of the upper two sections had a shaft with a dumbwaiter that used to transport fuel up to the fire. Staircases allowed visitors and the keepers to climb to the beacon chamber. There, according to reports, a large curved mirror, perhaps made of polished bronze, was used to project the fire's light into a beam. It was said ships could detect the light from the tower at night or the smoke from the fire during the day up to 100 miles away. There are stories that this mirror could be used as a weapon to concentrate the sun and set enemy ships ablaze as they approached. Another tale says that it was possible to use the mirror to magnify the image of the city of Constantinople, which was located far across the sea, and observe what was going on there. Both of these stories seem implausible, however. The structure was said to be liberally decorated with statuary, including 4 likenesses of the god Triton on each of the 4 corners of the roof of the lowest levels. Materials recently salvaged from the sea by archaeologists, including the stone torso of a woman, seem to support these stories. The lighthouse was apparently a tourist attraction. Food was sold to visitors at the observation platform at the top of the first level. A smaller balcony provided an outlook from the top of the 8-sided tower for those that wanted to make the additional climb. The view from there must have been impressive, as it was probably 300 feet above the sea. There were few places in the ancient world where a person could ascend a man-made tower to get such a perspective. Destruction. How then did the world's first lighthouse wind up on the floor of the Mediterranean Sea? Most accounts indicate that it, like many other ancient buildings, was the victim of earthquakes. It stood for over 1,500 years, apparently surviving a tsunami that hit eastern Mediterranean in 365 AD with minor damage. After that, however, tremors might have been responsible for cracks that appeared in the structure at the end of the 10th century and required a restoration that lowered the height of the building by about 70 feet. Then, in 1303 AD, a major earthquake shook the region that put the pharaohs permanently out of business. Egyptian records divers in 1115 AD reported the pharaohs intact and still operating as a lighthouse. Did the divers actually find the remains of pharaohs in the bottom of the harbor? Some of the larger blocks of stone found certainly seem to have come from a large building. Statues were